Hello you lovely lot, welcome to a new video. For today's video I'm going to be doing a little review of the Xencelabs Pen Tablet Medium Bundle. I hadn't heard of this brand before, but they opened their email by saying they tend to draw in a lot of Wacom users, and being someone who has tried a lot of tablets and always tends to go back to Wacom, I was interested to see how they compare. I was asked which tablet I wanted to review, so I picked the biggest bundle on the site because I just wanted to try everything and see how it went. So, as per usual, I wasn't paid for this, no sponsorship or anything like that. I was just sent it for free and asked to try it out and give my opinions. So the first thing I thought when unboxing this was how nice the packaging is. It's got a cardboard sleeve which the inner box just slides out of, and the inside is a flyer which just thanks you for purchasing it and gives you a bit of information about the process of designing it. They mention how they worked with professional artists at each stage of the process, which I thought was really encouraging to see. Underneath that was the tablet itself, which from my first impression was pretty weighty and sturdy. I've reviewed quite a few tablets that felt very lightweight and fairly cheap, but this isn't a cheap tablet, so I was expecting quality and I was pretty happy from the first impression. It has a nice surface area that's not too smooth, and it has a little bit of texture, which is ideal for this type of tablet. And it also has 3 buttons which will bring up different menus for changing your settings while you're working. In this box you also get a case for storing the tablet, which has some really strong Velcro, as you can see from the fact that I had quite a bit of trouble getting into it, and it has some really soft fabric inside, which honestly, if I was small enough, I'd want to crawl into it myself. It's very padded, and I feel like the tablet will be very protected if you carried it anywhere. I was really impressed with the quality. I haven't tried carrying it anywhere because my workspace is stationary, I don't have a laptop or anything. And also, like the state of the world, I'm not really going anywhere at the moment, but I feel like if you carried the tablet around in this, you wouldn't have to worry about it being damaged. Next are the 2 USB cables for the tablet and the controller, and a drawing glove, which I don't personally tend to use with non-screen tablets, but it's always nice to have to prevent getting oil from your hand onto the tablet or to stop extra friction where your hand's going across it. After that is the controller, which is a separate device allowing you to program extra shortcuts without having to use your keyboard. In my last video I reviewed the Toolbox, which is a similar principle, hence I was interested to see the Xencelabs bundle and see how it compared. This is fairly weighty, with a rubber underside so that it won't slide around on your desk. It has 8 buttons and a dial, with an LCD screen in the middle. Like the tablet, it can also be used via USB or used wirelessly. Also you get a sticker, for those who like stickers and don't have commitment issues like me, where you buy stickers, put them in a drawer and never ever actually use them. Next there's a little warranty policy booklet, and then finally there's the case containing the tablet pens, adapters and spare nibs. I was pleasantly surprised by how sturdy this case is. I was less pleasantly surprised when I found this out by shutting my finger in it. Inside you get 2 different size pens, one that's kind of your standard size. Here it is in comparison with my Wacom pen, so you can see that it's very similar, and one that's thinner, which is kind of closer to a ballpoint pen for those who have smaller hands or just find that more comfortable. You get a USB-A to USB-C adapter, a wireless dongle, and then 10 spare nibs. So you get 6 standard and 4 felt nibs, along with the little tool you use to change the nibs over. I was really impressed with the 2 different options for nibs. I always buy felt nibs for my Wacom tablet because I prefer how they feel on the surface, so I was happy that Xencelabs also includes similar nibs. And also having this many spares, they're going to last you a long time as well. On the back of the flyer that was in the box are basic instructions on how to download the drivers. It was very simple to go to the website and find the ones I needed, and it installed without any issue. It's worth mentioning I still had my Cintiq drivers installed at this point because I didn't want the hassle of uninstalling them and losing all my settings, which I knew was a bit of a risk. And I'd probably advise deleting any other tablet drivers because, that's generally what you should do, and I don't want to give bad advice, but it would take a lot for me to uninstall my Cintiq and have to redo all my settings, so I didn't do that. But from my experience, the 2 of them did not actually clash. Then I went into the software and started playing about with the settings. It's almost overwhelming how many options there are for customizing this tablet. It took me about 10 minutes just to decide what colour I wanted the lights on the corners. You can choose from 8 different options, and then in addition you can choose how bright you want them to be, and you can also change the function of the 3 buttons on the top of the tablet as well. You can also change settings for each piece of software you use. There are a lot of different choices, but I just added Clip Studio because that's what I use the most. Each button on the pen for both types of pen can have its function changed, and the software layout makes it nice and easy to see which button it's referring to. Then you can choose all your settings for the Quick Keys controller, which can also have different settings for each type of software, which gives it a ton of versatility. In addition to the 8 buttons on the dial, you can also press down the dial to toggle to another set of shortcuts. So in total you can have up to 40 shortcuts per application. And each one is visible on the little screen on the controller itself, so at a glance you can see which ones are where and you don't have to remember them all off by heart, because there's no chance of me ever being able to do that. And in addition, you can also change the colour of the light on the dial to correspond with each set of shortcuts. Lastly, I set my screen mapping preferences so you can choose if you want your cursor to work across additional screens if you have more than one, or just on your main screen. I have one main monitor and then a secondary one, so I just set it to map to the main one. As I do with any new tablets, I then tried out the pressure sensitivity. I can't find anything that actually says exactly how much pressure sensitivity this tablet has, which was interesting because it's usually something that's very obvious on the packaging of most tablets, but I was really impressed by how it felt. You can go from a thin, barely visible line to solid black, and I also tried some quick small strokes which some tablets can struggle with if you work fast and they tend to sort of glitch out a little bit, but I found there didn't seem to be any issue with this one. If you can see some breaks in the lines here, it's not a fault, it's because I lifted the pen off the tablet just slightly, because I'm not used to having quite that much sensitivity in the pen, because my current tablet is a 2012 model, so it's showing its age a little bit in terms of the actual variance in sensitivity. So yeah, I was really impressed by how this felt. And now we're going to go on to the drawings. So initially I used this tablet via USB, both because it didn't arrive fully charged to use the wireless function and just because I'm used to using USB. My computer had a weird issue for a while where it would disconnect my Wi-Fi whenever I used anything on Bluetooth, but now I use Ethernet, so it doesn't matter. But it just means I'm not really used to using wireless connections and I tend to forget they exist. But it didn't take too long for both the tablet and the Quick Key controller to charge. I didn't keep track exactly, but it was probably a couple of hours or so. And then when they were charged, I switched over to wireless and found that they both work off the same dongle. Whereas with USB, you need 2 USB ports. So that was handy for having spare ports, which I don't have a lot of, and they didn't seem to have any issues connecting. I just plugged them in and they came up with a little pop-up saying that they were installing, and then it worked. The shape of the tablet is really nice. It's got a sort of taper towards the bottom where your wrist rests, and although my desk setup is not ideal, I will say that much because my tablet is very close to the edge of the desk due to lack of space. It's a really nice detail to add that taper to make it a bit more comfortable to lean your hand on. Sometimes non-screen tablets will have quite a firm edge and it's not quite as comfortable. The aspect ratio of the drawing surface is 16:9, so should fit most current monitors. It always takes me a little bit to get used to using a tablet without a screen again because I'm primarily used to drawing straight on the screen, and so I don't have to sort of reconfigure my hand-eye coordination again. So it normally takes me just a little bit of time to get into the swing of things again with one of these tablets, but in terms of actually using it, I didn't find any stumbling blocks or any difficulties. So you might notice my lines are a little more wobbly at the start of the drawing than at the end, and that's just because I was getting more comfortable again with using a tablet like that. Initially I used the standard nib just to see how it felt, and I like how it feels on the surface. There's enough tooth, or friction, or texture, however you want to call it, on the tablet's drawing area that the pen never feels like it's just sliding around wherever it wants to go. And this is something they did mention specifically on the included leaflet, since it's obviously important for an artist to feel comfortable with their drawing surface. Whereas a traditional artist draws on many different surfaces potentially, a digital artist is drawing on the same surface all the time, so it's got to be the right one. And I did change over the nib to the felt nib after a while to try it out, and because I was interested to see how it compared to my Wacom felt nibs, and it felt very similar to those. I decided to stick with that one because it's just more like what I'm used to and feels more comfortable for me. The felt nibs tend to add a little bit more friction, which just feels better with the way I work. If I could make a comparison, it's like writing on textured paper versus copy paper, and obviously some people might prefer writing on copy paper, so there is that choice, and I personally prefer to work with a slight feel of more friction on the pen, so that's what works for me. So I really like that they include both options, which enables you to give both of them a try and see what you like best. Something I would really like with this tablet would be a pen stand. I know you get a ton of other stuff, including the pen case and everything, but I just think a stand would be really nice. I just don't like laying my pen down on my desk, because we know what we're like as artists. I don't think there's a digital artist in existence who hasn't lost their tablet pen at least once. You just put them down and they're gone. So even though you do already get a lot in this bundle, I do think a stand would be an extra detail I would really appreciate, because I ended up bringing over my stand from my other tablet, because I just think it's nice to have something to put it in that doesn't require you to have the little pen case out on the desk all the time. As for the Quick Keys remote, I really liked it. It's worth mentioning in the setup there was also the option to choose whether you'll be using it right-handed or left-handed, but I did get a little bit confused. I couldn't figure whether it was asking if I was left-handed or if I'd be using it with my left hand. So that's one part of the setup process that tripped me up a little bit. I chose left-handed, I believe, and then the captions appeared on the screen of the controller with the dial on the right. So I think that was correct. I presume it's intended to be used horizontally, because obviously the words appear horizontally, but you don't need to do that. If you don't need to look at the captions, you could also use it vertically. I probably should have done this, to be honest, given the very limited space on my desk, because it was a little bit squashed. I kept around half the options on default and then customized the other half to the same kind of shortcuts I have on my Toolbox controller, with the dial set to zoom for most of the time that I was working on this, but there's a huge variety of choices that you could have for each button and your dial. So you could have the dial set to change your brush size or rotate the canvas or whatever you liked. I personally prefer to have the largest dial on the controller on my Toolbox to zoom, so I just stuck to that, and I found it really helpful. You can have them set to specific keys, so if you have specific shortcuts you've set up, you can do that. So it's really versatile, and for me personally I found that it did decrease my working time. It helped speed it up a little bit, which I really like. The buttons have a fairly solid click to them, and the dial turns smoothly, and it has a little indent for your finger as well. The rubber base also prevented it from sliding around on the desk. I actually had to move my keyboard out of the way for this review since, as I've said, I have very limited desk space, and using this tablet and controller I didn't have to reach for my keyboard at all, except when I needed to type layer names and stuff. I say, as if I ever actually name my layers. For anyone who's interested in what I'm drawing here, because we're at the inevitable part of the video where I talk about my OCs, this is my character from a certain critically acclaimed MMO with a free trial up to level 60, because over the last year I've accumulated over 1,000 hours in said critically acclaimed MMO, and I love my Lalafell very, very much, so I wanted to draw some up-to-date artwork of him. He's 2'9". He's absolutely condensed goblin energy, but he's also an absolute sweetheart and I adore him. And I spend at least 50% of my time in the game just taking pictures of him. So he's actually officially a dad now. He's adopted one of my friend's characters and I'm very proud of him. He's doing his best. He's not always fantastic, but he's doing his best. Originally, I intended to line this, but then partway through I was enjoying the process of adding in all those little hatch strokes and playing with the pressure sensitivity that I decided to just make it into a more detailed sketch, so I wouldn't have to erase all of those nice varied lines that I'd added in while I was experimenting, because I do tend to find myself sometimes when I work leaving in my construction lines, and this is something I hadn't really noticed that I do until I did a stream with some friends where they were actually playing around with trying to draw in my style, and seeing my art style through someone else's eyes was very, very interesting, and they said that they noted that a lot of the time I leave my construction lines in my finished piece, and I realised I do tend to do that because I just feel it adds a bit more depth to the illustration, it gives it a bit more fluidity, and so I've been leaning more lately into making my lines more sketchy, or at least trying to retain the original energy of the sketch when I work on the lines. And so basically what I wanted to do here was try and keep that initial energy and not get rid of all those little hatching details that I'd added when I'd been building up the initial sketch. So essentially I just made this into a more detailed sketch and then added some loose colours at the end to try and keep focus on those pencil lines, and I really like how it turned out. Having such a variety in pressure sensitivity feels like using a dozen different pencils at once, because you've got that barely visible soft line, and then you've got that solid weight you can add to it, and I just really like it, and I enjoyed the process a lot. Overall, from my process of using this tablet, I was really impressed. I didn't know what to expect from a company that's clearly marketing itself as a competitor to Wacom. I've reviewed a lot of tablets that were in a much lower price range, and you could tell from the build quality. So often with tablets it's a case of you get what you pay for. I've found that a lot of them tend to cut corners on the actual quality, whereas you can feel the tablet is very lightweight, it doesn't feel sturdy, or the buttons kind of rattle, or the pen feels flimsy, and that's kind of just what you expect. I think with this the price range was higher, and so I was hoping for quality, but I had no idea what to expect, and I was actually really pleasantly surprised. This bundle currently retails at $359 on the Xencelabs website, or $279 for the medium tablet on its own. So it's not a huge difference to get the bundle with the quick key remote and everything, and personally I do think it's a really good deal. I perhaps would be hesitant initially if I'd actually bought this because it's a relatively new brand I hadn't heard of before. But having tried it, I'm genuinely very impressed. Every detail about this product tells me that they put a lot of thought into it and got feedback from artists, and from the ease of use of the software and how hugely customizable it is, to the tapering on the tablet and the choice of pens and nibs, I feel like they've really put in the effort to make it something that will fit seamlessly into your workflow. I can't vouch for the longevity of this tablet since I've only used it for a short space of time, but from first impressions the build quality does make me feel like it's going to last. Every part of it feels solid and sturdy, and there are a lot of nice details, both practical and cosmetic, like all the little engraved logo details within the pens and the case and everything. I really like those little details. I hope that this video was helpful to anyone considering buying this tablet. As a reminder, I wasn't paid or sponsored or anything like that. I was just sent this for free, and I was just genuinely impressed. And I don't say that I think something is good unless I really think it was, because I don't want to ever mislead people for the sake of getting a few views on a video. I do hope that Xencelabs will give me the opportunity to try one of their other tablets in the future, because I believe they're bringing out some screen tablets, and I would be incredibly interested to see how they compare to Wacom's screen tablets, because I've been using a screen tablet for many years, and mine eventually is going to be too old to update for all the new operating systems and everything. So I kind of got my ear to the ground listening out for future developments in screen tablets, and yeah, this is totally a hint, but you know, maybe call on me first if you design some screen tablets, perhaps. Wink wink. Anyway, I hope you found the video useful and that you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comment section down below, and I will see you next time. Bye!